Hi everyone, and welcome to another one of our virtual Yellowstone tours. That's Teesha again with me, and over here we have Trixie or Kemi, who's just dropped us off, driving one of our Yellowstone taxi vans. Oh, and I forgot my bear spray.
You need this?
Is that my bear spray or your bear spray?
I don't know, it was up here.
Oh, that's a spare one. I forgot mine. Thanks, Trixie. Wow.
Does she have
See ya. And Genius here forgot his bear spray. Teesha, have you got your bear spray? Great. Always remember to take your bear spray. I'm a fine one to talk, I know. So today we're doing the Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone North Rim Trail. You would have seen maybe our South Rim Trail in another one of our virtual Yellowstone tour videos. This is such a beautiful day, and I can illustrate that. Look at that. Today is the last day that Yellowstone is open for the season. So even though we had a whole bunch of snow, when was it, last week?
Yeah.
We decided that we had to come up and do one more trail, and we decided it would be the North Rim Trail. It may be heavy going for a while, as we're going to be trudging through the snow. T has those fine snow boots on, and the trail starts, as you saw, at the Chittenden Bridge. There is a parking lot for both the North and the South Rim Trails. It's called the Wapiti Lake Trailhead, and you can park there even if you're not doing the Wapiti Lake Trail itself. Park there for both the North Rim and the South Rim Trails. And then, in the case of the North Rim Trail, cross the Chittenden Bridge and get on the trail. So many people like to start the North Rim Trail at the parking lot for the Brink of the Lower Falls, which is on the North Rim Trail Drive. I prefer to start it at Chittenden Bridge because you get in this extra section and you're so much closer to the river. Not only are you closer to it, you're on the same level as it for some of the way. And you'll notice that from the South Rim Trail video, there's some wonderful footage right next to the Yellowstone River. And we get out, well, the trail ends at Inspiration Point, and that's where Trixie is going to be meeting us in a couple of hours. There's no ways of knowing exactly how long you're going to be on the trail, because there's so many things that you can see. It's been reasonably cold for a while, but temperatures are up. It's about 40 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment, which is about probably 4.5, 5 degrees Celsius. And there were some pictures online of bears that people had seen. So there's still the bears probably haven't started hibernating yet. And on the stretch between, it's a lovely view of the river. This is the Yellowstone River, by the way. On the stretch of trail, the stretch of road on the North Rim Drive between the upper parking lot, between the parking lot for the Lower Falls and about Grand Viewpoint, I've occasionally seen bears there, so it's not unusual to see them in this area. Shame the sun is right behind the bridge, isn't it? You okay?
Yeah. I'm trying to look for animal prints in the snow.
Yes. This, along with the South Rim trail across the river there, really is one of the most wonderful trails in all of Yellowstone. Just think about it. You've got an incredible river, the Yellowstone River. You've got a marvelous canyon, Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, of course. You've got these trees and the forest. And then you've got two waterfalls. The upper Yellowstone Falls, the lower falls, and then, as you'll see in a minute when we cross over the bridge, there's also all sorts of smaller falls and cascades. That's always such a picturesque shot with those rocks in the river. Hi.
Let him do
Those of you who've seen the South Rim Trail will recognize those rocks. And the trail is a little bit up that hillside over there. The end of the season can be a great time to visit Yellowstone. The only downside is you never know what weather you're going to get. And the Park Service has been very proactive in recent years in closing down roads even before they're snow covered or ice packed to prevent any incidents, rather than waiting for people to get into trouble or waiting for the roads to get bad. So we'll get a text, that's our tour company, our motel, we'll get a text from the Park Service saying, hey, such and such a road will be closed at 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening or whatever it is, and you can't get into the park. So that's really unfortunate if you do come at the end of the season and you've come a long way to get to Yellowstone and you can't get into the park. The worst is for those people who are staying in Cody. The road from Cody, Wyoming runs to the east entrance. It's about, I don't know, almost an hour's drive. And you can drive all the way there and then find that the road is closed because the pass, what's called the Sylvan Pass, is closed because of the snow. That's one of those... That over there is the brink of the upper falls. You can see the viewpoint. Unusually, there's nobody there. Let's take a look at where this hike is relative to the rest of Yellowstone. I'm going to drop in a map over here. And you'll see that the roads through the park make up a gigantic figure of 8. And there's a road in the middle that splits the figure of 8 into 2 huge loops. On the left side or the west side, you'll see Norris Geyser Basin, And on the right side, you'll see Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. And if you go all the way to the right and just drop down a little to the south, that is where we are at the moment. As you drive down from Canyon Village, there's several turnoffs that you can take to Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. I mentioned that many people like to start their trail, their hike at the parking lot of the Brink of the lower falls. But we come down a little further to Chittenden Bridge, as I mentioned. So going from south to north, you'll go through the Hayden Valley. You'll then see the road that leads over the Chittenden Bridge to Artist Point, which for my money is the most spectacular of the viewpoints at Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone, and I may talk about that a little bit later. And then you'll see the road which comes down here to the brink of the lower falls. Oh, excuse me, the brink of the upper falls. And we're going to take a look at that. This area has been redone recently by the Park Service. It really is in wonderful condition. Hi.
Hello.
We include the brink of the lower, excuse me, I keep on saying that. We include the brink of the upper falls on our regular Yellowstone tours, which you can see at yellowstonetours.net. That's yellowstonetours.net. And I'll talk more about this later, but we generally do not include the trip down to the brink of the lower falls on our tours because the hike up is fairly long and fairly arduous and steep. This is pretty much ice covered at the moment. And it's so strange to come here and there's nobody else down here. This is normally packed. What I really love about this point is that you feel like you're so close to the waterfalls. Just check this out. Across the river over there, you can see where the viewpoint is from the South Rim Trail. Look at that steam coming off. And then the river just carries on peacefully meandering its way down, unaware that it's soon going to be falling over a waterfall, falling over yet another waterfall on its way through the canyon. You can see the Chittenden Bridge where we started, off in the distance over there. I mentioned this area was redone recently, and this is one of the new viewpoints that was put in. And across the way there, that looks like the area that comes down from the parking lot at Uncle Tom's, which I'll talk about in a minute. Uncle Tom's Point is another one of the popular viewpoints and also a trail that ran Canyon of the Yellowstone. When you drive over the Chittenden Bridge, you're heading mainly, most people are, for Artist Point, but there's Uncle Tom's as well. And unfortunately, the trail towards the bottom at Uncle Tom's has been closed off this year. It was closed off last year as well, now that I think about it. When the trail was redone, I don't know why they've got it closed again this year. But if you see our South Rim Trail hike, you'll notice that it's closed off as well. And Uncle Tom was a Bozeman resident. Bozeman is a town, a city up to the north of Yellowstone in southwest Montana. And Tom had the concession to take people by boat over the Yellowstone River. In those days, there was no Chittenden Bridge. So if you wanted to get from the North Rim side, the side where we are now, to the South Rim, you either swam across or waded across, which is a bit dangerous, or you took the boat. And that's where the name Uncle Tom's comes from. Of course, he lost all his business when the Chittenden Bridge was put in. Chittenden Bridge is named after Hiram Chittenden, and that's a name that you may remember. The road up at the top of Mount Washburn is the Chittenden Road, and Chittenden was an engineer who was out here in the 1890s with some of the exploratory parties. In fact, it was Chittenden who decided that the area around the north entrance at Gardner was too bleak and barren, and it was his idea to put in the Roosevelt Arch. President Theodore Roosevelt happened to be hunting and fishing in the area, and he was asked to come along and speak at the initial construction phase of the arch. And he did. He gave a speech, and that's why the arch is named the Roosevelt Arch. But one of the ironies is that Roosevelt never actually saw the completed arch. He never came back to Yellowstone after the arch had been constructed and finished. And don't worry about losing the trail over here. It is signposted and you may be able to see about 40 yards ahead of us. The trail continues to the right, in a more or less northerly direction. I'd hoped to do this hike earlier in the season, but we'd had so much smoke around from wildfires, particularly in California. Do you remember when the wildfires started? What is that, about July?
Yep.
And there was so much smoke, and if you have a look at, gosh, I think it was particularly Mystic Falls hike, you can see just how much smoke there's around. You can't see the blue skies at all. It's really most unfortunate. And Crystal Falls is just about, well, I won't say it's just about frozen up, but you can see that a lot of it is frozen up. There's still water coming down though. Teesha mentioned earlier that she was looking out for animal prints, which is obviously so much easier to do in the snow or in the spring in the mud. And I'll drop in, if I can find them, a picture that I have of a grizzly bear print that I took when I was out mountain biking one day, and that was just to the south of West Yellowstone on a trail that I like to take. For those of you who are not used to these conditions, you'll find it's generally easier to walk where there's a little bit of snow still left on top. The hard pack stuff, as you'll soon discover, is really icy. There's a great view of the canyon. Gosh, more than a little slippery. See, you doing okay there? This is pretty. Hey guys.
How you doing?
Hey, good, how are you? Pretty slippery. Thank you.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Hey.
Good. At least it's mud now. You can see we've climbed up quite a distance from the river, and the river has dropped down quite a distance from us as we climb up towards the rim of the canyon.
This is probably similar to spring hiking.
With the mud, yeah. But it's so much nicer when it's exposed to the sun, isn't it? You don't have all this ice. Just remind me, whose idea was this?
It's worth it though.
I agree. Boy, isn't that a great view of the canyon down there? It'll be interesting to see if the time we gave Trixie to meet us will be enough with all this ice. That's another great shot there. Hi.
Sometimes you can sidestep your way through these situations. Not if there's ice, though.
You're a great sidestepper then. Remember how great you were at Fairy Falls, sidestepping your way.
I tripped over everything.
No, you didn't. You were awesome. Don't you remember getting through those mud sections?
Oh, that's right. I was good at that. I take it back.
Yeah. Hey, guys. So this is where we meet up with a trail that goes down to the brink of the lower falls. That'll take you to the parking lot up top. And this way goes down.
This is tricky. It's the mud on top of ice.
Thank you. But yeah, then it's nice and open though. We already have a complete virtual Yellowstone tour on the brink of the lower falls, which you can see in our YouTube channel. And you can also see it at virtualyellowstonetours.com. That's virtualyellowstonetours.com. Hi. You recall I mentioned that we do the brink of the upper falls on our regular Yellowstone tours, our real Yellowstone tours, which you can see at yellowstonetours.net. And the reason we do that one is that, as you've just seen, the walk back up is not that tricky, it's not that long, although it is steep. Here you go down a significant distance and then you have to climb back up again. And the hike back up is reasonably intense. It's not that long, but it is steep and you're already at altitude. So although it's not the Grand Canyon, it's a similar principle to the Grand Canyon, where you start low down, and as you get more and more tired, you get higher and higher and higher, and you're finding it more difficult to breathe. You can really hear that water now as it thunders over the brink of the lower falls. See, you're allowed to run down, but you have to run back up as well.
Oh no! I'll give it a try.
Hi there. T, do you mind if I get in front of you on this next section? So when you run down and you slip, I can get a picture of it?
Okay.
Thank you.
Then you don't fall on top of me. It's fun. It makes you feel like a kid. It's too icy to run right here, Cecil.
After you, man.
Let's go. It's drier on that side. It varies. Oh,
After you.
Oh. I'm not going to run on this one. Oh, yes.
It really was like skating at one stage there.
Yeah. We're getting all the trees smell so good.
They do, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, you've got your sense of smell back?
A little bit, yeah, it's coming back.
Teesha had COVID a few weeks ago and came out of quarantine. When did you come out of quarantine? About 10 days, 2 weeks ago?
About 2 weeks ago, yeah.
Oh, it's great you're getting your sense of smell back.
Didn't smell a thing.
And this is the bottom. This is the brink of the lower falls. It's a little different to when I was here in the summer, apart from the fact obviously that there's snow around. The sun is so much lower in the sky at this time of the year that not that much of the canyon is illuminated. Look at the steam coming off. Isn't that impressive with all that steam? This is where the Uncle Tom's Trail comes out. This is just absolutely unheard of. We're at the brink of the lower falls, and Teesha and I are the only ones here. This place is normally absolutely just jam-packed crowded. Here come a couple of people to spoil our fun. Should we head back up?
Not a cloud in the sky.
I know, it's such a beautiful day. We got lucky from that point of view as well. And the temperatures also warmed up, didn't they? Hi, thank you.
Hey. Sweet as that.
That's where we've got to go still. When we get up to the top, we can continue with the North Rim Trail hike.
Okay.
Hey. And this, you'll recall, is where we came out on the North Rim Trail from Chittenden Bridge. That's the upper falls thundering away through the trees. This trail now is going to take us to the main parking lot of the North Rim Drive. Obviously, this is where you'd park to take this walk down to the brink of the lower falls. But then you can also drive along the entire North Rim Drive and see the other viewpoints as well. And here we are in the parking lot. And that's where the road comes down from the Grand Loop Road. It's just a little too icy on that part of the trail itself. So there's any number of viewpoints that you'll see as you drive along this road taking the North Rim Drive, but there's three main points. The first one we'll come across is Lookout Point, then Grand View Point, and then Inspiration Point is the last one. And this is where you leave the parking lot to pick up the trail again. It stays pretty close to the road though. And this is one of those smaller viewpoints that I was mentioning to you that you see all over the place here. It's a little difficult to see under the snow, and also with the way the rocks are. Maybe you can get an idea across the canyon over there. You can see how the rocks are yellow. And that's really how this place got its name, Yellowstone. It was called whatever the Native American equivalent word was, and I forget which tribe it was now, but they called it Yellowstone. And when the first French fur trappers came through here, they translated it into French, and then Lewis and Clark translated it from French into English. That's Lewis and Clark from the Lewis and Clark expedition. We're right next to the road, as you can see. Careful, T, kind of icy here. Well, rather that than fall down.
Nice job.
Thank you. And just in case you didn't know where you were, the Park Service very kindly has a sign up here. Grand Canyon of the Yellowstone. Eroded and decomposed rhyolite lava rock. Width varies from 1,500 feet to 4,000 feet. Depth varies from 750 to 1,200 feet. The lower falls is 1/4 of a mile away. You don't even need a tour guide. You all right?
Yep. Cover my water bottle. I tell you what, on a day like this, it's so nice to come across a section of trail which is exposed and you don't have all that ice and snow. I don't know if you can see that guy in the red up there, that's Lookout Point. And we're joining up with the North Rim Drive again, with Lookout Point ahead of us. On the one hand, it's such a beautiful day today. On the other, it's the last day that Yellowstone is open. So I guess it's not surprising to see a few cars here at Lookout Point. I've mentioned this on various of other virtual Yellowstone tours, but when you're walking up to Lookout Point, look to your left or look to the north, and you'll see some hilltop formations. I'll stop in a minute and show you them. And there's an osprey's nest on top of the one. I'll zoom in on it. Hope you can see it over there. And when you come here in the spring, the osprey is always sitting on her nest with her young, with her eggs underneath. And it's quite a treat to wait a while and see the little osprey and watch them learning to try and fly. Great view of the lower falls. Just above it, you can see the viewpoint where we were, and I remarked we were the only ones there. Look carefully at the bottom if you can, and you may see thermal features there. You may be able to see steam coming up. You have thermal features all the way up and down the canyon. That's a little trail from Lookout Point. It's a nice view of the falls, which we're not going to do today.
మాకు లాజికల్ వద్దు, మాకు మ్యాజికల్ కావాలి.
And I'll say goodbye to the osprey's nest for 5.5 months. This Yellowstone, as I've mentioned, is closing. Effectively today, the park closes always at 8 o'clock on a Monday morning, so you can't really come in. So this is the last day inside the park, basically, unless you come in by a snowmobile or a snow coach, and I'll talk to you more about that for 5.5 months.
the adoption center that you...
Most of the roads in Yellowstone are closed in the winter season to everything but snowmobiles and snow coaches. Generally at the end of the first week of November, so tomorrow this year, most of the entrances to Yellowstone close. And they'll reopen again for the winter season somewhere around the third week of December. But you're only allowed to go in by snowmobile and snow coach. There is an exception to that, which I'll tell you about. For quite a while, you had to take a guided snow coach or snowmobile tour. But the last couple of years, though, the Park Service has started a lottery where you're allowed to apply for a permit to take your own vehicle into the park, your own snowmobile into the park. And that's really cool. I applied for one, got several of my friends to do so, but none of us was lucky, unfortunately. So I mentioned that basically all the park roads are closed. The entrances and the roads are closed, but the north entrance is always open. It's open year-round. That's where Mammoth Hot Springs is, the park headquarters. And I'm about to run out of battery on this device, so I'll have to continue that story on another device in a minute. I mentioned that the north entrance to Yellowstone is always open. The north entrance is at the small town of Gardner, and the road from Gardner to Mammoth Hot Springs is always open. Mammoth Hot Springs is the park's headquarters. It's also where Fort Yellowstone is, and because it's the park's headquarters, it needs to stay open on a year-round basis. But then, in addition to that, at the northeast entrance, where the small towns of Cook City and Silvergate are, the road on the other side of that is the Beartooth Highway. And the Beartooth Highway is closed in the winters. In fact, it closes really early. Here's a sign that tells you about those osprey that I mentioned at Lookout Point. And that one nest I showed you is on the other side of that. So the Beartooth Highway closes really early. It closes even before winter, because it does get up really high. And once it snows, the snow sticks around all winter, and you wouldn't believe how much snow there is up there. So normally people from Cook City and Silvergate would take the Beartooth Highway. You can see that overlook over there in our South Rim Trail video. I remember stopping there, and that is Artist Point that you see over there. Anyway, I was saying that the people of Cook City and Silvergate would either go north on the Beartooth Highway up to Red Lodge, or they'd go down to the southeast towards Cody, Wyoming, and they get their services that way. But with the Beartooth Highway being closed, there's no way for them to get out. So if they need services, food, doctor, whatever it is, supplies of some sort, they would need to, the only way they can get out is through Yellowstone. So they would take the road from the northeast entrance towards Tower Junction, and then from Tower Junction to Mammoth, and Mammoth to Gardner. That's Grand Viewpoint straight ahead of us. And then across the way, across the canyon, there's Artist Point. I can't zoom in as much because I'm not using my real camera. I can't zoom in too much on this one. But Artist Point, and then over there is Grand Viewpoint. And here we are at Grand Viewpoint. And this essentially gives us the same information but as that other sign we saw, but adds something about the steam vents at the bottom, which I mentioned to you. There's Artist Point again across the way from us. Yellowstone River, of course, as it flows through the canyon. That there again is the trail we came in on. We're heading up to the parking lot, and then we'll pick up the North Rim hiking trail as opposed to the North Rim Drive again in a minute. And here's the last leg of our trip, on to Inspiration Point. be some serious sliding from here to the bottom, wouldn't there? And that across the way there is Artist Point again. Snow's a lot softer here, isn't it? Was there? Oh man, talk about mud. That was funny. I thought you were shrieking at the mud. You really sink into this mud, don't you? Better than the ice, though. And here comes the ice again. interesting. Look at that pale rock there. I wonder if that's sinter from the remnants of a thermal area here at one time. You want to take a seat for a moment?
No, I'm okay.
On the tree trunk? Okay. Not tree trunk, but tree roots. really see how yellow the canyon is over there, can't you?
That lights up quite a bit.
Yes, where that steam is coming off. Yeah. You can see the river down at the bottom, the Yellowstone River. And there's one of those smaller falls that I'd mentioned to you right at the outset when I was telling you what you could see on this trail. There's actually two of them down there, more like a cascade. A marker so you can see where the trail is in the winter when there's a lot of snow. Woohoo, T! Inspiration point. Guys, you gotta give major props to Teesha. Those of you who are still with us after 2 hours and some change. As I mentioned a while ago, she's came out of quarantine for COVID-19 only 2 weeks ago and still feeling the effects of that terrible disease. And it's a hell of a job to have done this entire trail with me. Good job, T.
Thank you, Cecil. Thank you for having me.
Only a pleasure. Those of you who have seen our North Rim Drive virtual Yellowstone tour will recognize this little metal bridge. You may also recall I showed you where there was steam coming off the canyon walls. I don't know how far I can zoom in with this camera, and if you can see it over there. See, you see the steam coming off the wall?
Oh yeah, I did.
Well, this is the Inspiration Point parking lot, and can you believe this? We beat Tammy. She's not here yet. Well, to those of you who were able to sit through what I imagine was over 2 hours worth of video, thank you so much for joining me on this virtual Yellowstone tour. Remember that you can see all of our virtual Yellowstone tours at virtualyellowstonetours.com. That's virtualyellowstonetours.com. If you enjoy this virtual Yellowstone tour series, please consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing to our channel. Otherwise, see you in Yellowstone.